I'm so happy to be here. It's just a wonderful encounter for me. So often religion is so dry and, doctrine and that kind of thing. And here I sense a real care for each other, a willingness to go deep, and a joy. And I love it. So thank you very much. I had looked online to look at your principles to see, how these match, and it feels like everything you believe, I believe too. So sometimes I'm probably maybe known as more of a liberal Christian, or I don't know, whatever. So anyway, I've written 2 books now, and I'll just mention the first one that I wrote. This was during COVID. It's called Cheering for the Good, Leading When It Matters. It's a lighter book, but it looks at goodness, because I've been searching for goodness my whole life in myself and in others. So the cheering is, I was a cheerleader in high school for 1 year, but I get to claim it. So it was always, cheering for the team, looking at others people's goodness and what they had to offer. And that's what this book goes through. So, and I do have my books out there for donation, if you want any. The one I'm going to talk about today is called The Green Thread, and it's Reclaiming Our Spiritual Authority. And let me just give you a kind of a general overview of it. There's so much in the book. There's 3 separate chapters. The first one is more about my own personal journey, but the journey that all of us take. The middle one is more about history and the Middle Ages and what happened to the Catholic Church and, all that kind of thing, and the other Protestant churches or whatever. And the third section is about today and what's all going on today and how we can understand that better. So, obviously, we don't have a lot of time for all of it, but I'll just start out with me a little bit. I grew up on a farm in Iowa, eastern Iowa, and everybody in that town, there were 300 people in the town, but like we were on the farm, but everybody was German and everybody was Catholic. And all German from the same part of Germany, too. So there was a northwestern part, what's called Lower Saxony now, if you've ever been to Germany. And we were in a bubble. We didn't know it at the time, but I didn't know any Protestant. I didn't know anybody of another race. I didn't know anybody of another religion. Well, we did have 2 people, I think, in town that, were Protestant, but anyway. But you don't want to associate too much, right? So anyway, so in the book I talk a lot more about that, and but I had a good family, had a good upbringing, didn't have major trauma or whatever I thought, but since at the time about 10 years old on, I experienced shame, like I wasn't good enough somehow, and it wasn't that that I lacked I could, go to school and do things, and, I was okay. But deep down, I knew that something was wrong, or I thought that something was wrong with me. And it was always like trying to plead with the God that was taught to us to be this, demagogue, really, that we were sinners and you're always doing the wrong thing. So you always have to be confessing. And it's just like I didn't know what I was doing wrong, but it must have been something, right? So anyway, so it was always like feeling like, yeah, something's not right, and why am I feeling like this? So once, in my 20s, I started seeing a counselor, and I saw a counselor throughout for many, many, many years, and a spiritual director, to kind of try to look at this. What is this shame about? And, I came to heal from that, kind of, although yesterday I was thinking about this and I go, oh, you're not good enough to do this. And it's, so it keeps coming back, but I always tell it, forget it. Just forget it. I know my topic, whatever. So just, So anyway, I healed from it as much as I could, and I thought that was good. Then I had a grand awakening. It was 2020, COVID year. And that George Floyd was murdered in Minneapolis. And it was kind of an awakening for me in a sense that might seem unusual, but I was listening to a radio program from the Minneapolis area, and there was two black people, I think, that were talking about, what was going on, the rioting and all that kind of thing. And he talked about some white people are coming up to him and saying, like, what is it we can do to help you? We'll come and protest with you. We'll do all of these things. And what he said, and what I've heard a number of indigenous and black people say, don't try to help us until you heal yourselves. And I go, well, I must have done that already. I've been working on my shame for years, but I realize that this shame is bigger than individuals. And especially, I think women feel shame. And I know men feel shame too, but they don't want to admit it usually. But I could have a good talk with you about that. So anyway, so I saw it as a bigger thing all of a sudden, and I think, okay, now, and what am I healing from? I don't know. My family was fine. I didn't know what else to do. And so I went back and tried to find my ancestors. And I don't know if you're German or not, but a lot of Germans don't talk about things much. So I knew hardly anything about my ancestors, So I started researching and trying to find out where was my original trauma. Have you heard of intergenerational trauma? That's a big thing right now that there's a lot of writing about it, that way back, people could have suffered a trauma, and in your family, it comes down through your genes, it comes down through the community norms that you have, what you can say, what you can't say. It all comes from that one, thing that happened. For some people, it's an ongoing thing. Like, look at our black brothers and sisters, our indigenous brothers and sisters. They're constantly being told that they're, that they're wrong or whatever. So I thought, okay, I'll go look at I'll try to find out. So I'm a good researcher. I love to research. So I found out that I am from Northwest Germany, like I said, and my family is so, I mean, yeah, we don't have a lot of variation anyway, what I'll say. All my great-great-grandparents that I could find were all from the same area within about 40 or 50 miles of each other. So that's like 8 different, families or whatever, all similar. So I thought, okay, I'm going to look at Northwest Germany then and find out who was there. And some of you probably know your history and know that the Saxons were there, the pagan Saxons, that was their territory, okay? And I don't know if any of you went to Catholic school or not, but we used to pay for the pagan babies. I don't know if you'd ever heard of that. We paid our little money, our dimes and everything, so somebody would go over and educate those pagan babies and make them become Christian, So anyway, so I thought, in my book I say, am I a pagan baby? And I go, yes, I think I am. So anyway, so then I started researching and found out that Charlemagne, you've heard of him, conquered the Saxons in 792, I think, or 782, something around there. And he did it by, violence. He killed 4,500 Saxons in one day, and then put the rest of them in, like they had to lose their language. The Saxon language has disappeared. They lost their religion. They believed in the gods and, that kind of thing. They lost that. They lost their language. So all of those things, and they became almost like slaves then, that they couldn't speak for themselves and that kind of thing. So I thought, oh my gosh, I believe that I am a Saxon, descendant. And what has that done to me, I think some of that is the shame that they felt at the time. I mean, they just went about life then, and, they didn't have any authority. They didn't have anything to draw them together anymore. And I go, wow. So then I, really kept investigating that. And I even created somebody in the book. I call her Grunthrad, which means green thread in Low German. Okay, so she was I figured out she would have been my 54th great-grandmother. So anyway, so in the book I talked to her about that, and how was it? She was killed by Charlemagne, so she expresses, what happened, and then what happened to her children and her grandchildren after that, and therefore, what kept happening to the Saxons. So they were converted to Christianity against their will. And at that time, Charlemagne also united with the church. I don't know if you remember that, again, from history, the Holy Roman Empire, you've heard of that. So the Pope in Rome was having trouble with the French and with the Italians and with everybody else. He thought, I'm going to go to the Germans because they're going to fight for me, because they were fighters, okay? So he went to, so they became in 800, I think, Charlemagne became the Holy Roman Emperor, meaning that the church and the state were united in that. Okay, and they united in order to control people. Okay, at that time it was called Christian imperialism. It is happening today. Do you know what it's called? Christian nationalism, same thing. They unite so that they can control people and not let people have say in their lives at all. They can punish them at will. And we know what happened to the Catholic Church during the Middle Ages with the witch burning, the Crusades. I mean, they were killing people, and it was okay with the Pope. The Pope thought it was fine. Again, very much like we're having today. It's just like, I guess that's okay. So all of those things happened, and it was like, I could see that was probably my original trauma, and our people's original trauma. And we kept living like that throughout the whole Middle Ages. And our family, our ancestors were so strong that the emperor then had to say, we've got to convert these people, not just by baptizing them, but we need to do something else, okay? And instead of just saying to them, like Jesus is love and compassion, that's what we're bringing to you, and we hope that you can learn that, as you go along, as you leave your other gods. What they decided to do was to focus on individual sin, blame, and punishment. So that is what the Middle Ages and the Catholic and then Christian churches, Catholic Church basically, was about. It's focused on sin, blame, and punishment. And that's what I said. I grew up in that kind of and we had a very nasty pastor all the years I was growing up. He was, I think, a pedophile, not a pedophile, but yeah, I guess. He was abusing women, and my classmates and everything else. So I lived in that, okay? So we had to go to confession every week or every month and confess sins that we didn't really know about. I had to make up some, Really, I mean, what can you do as a 10-year-old or whatever? And so then this pastor's mean, and I won't go into it, but when I gave a talk in my hometown area, we talked about that a lot, but that became the focus then, the sin, the blame, and the punishment. And hell became a big thing at that time, purgatory, if you've ever heard of that. So all of those things got more emphasis at that time as they were trying to control people. And what has followed from that, I think we still have it today. How many of you, well, I don't know, I won't ask you this, but sometimes I say, how many of you think that you're a good person? And it was funny because most times people will say, oh no, I'm not a good person. I'm a sinner, I'm a sinner. And I went to this is a sidelight, but I went to a senior citizen talk here in town, actually. And I said, how many of you think you're good? And they all raised their hand, and I go, what? Nobody else has said that before, because people tend to think of themselves as sinners, And if you don't think of yourself as sinners, then you're proud or whatever, So thinking of yourself as sinners, to me, as I came to understand that, is denying the whole creation story. And God created everything good. That's what it says. And the Adam and Eve story I won't go into that because there's a lot of things there. We all sin, obviously. I'm not saying we don't, okay? So we all sin because we're human, but we're not basically sinners. We are basically good people that stray away at times and then come back. And I mean, it's so ingrained that I just had a talk recently with a professional that I see about something, a medical professional, and they said that they had read my book and about, so you believe in that everybody's good? And I said, yeah, I do believe that. Well, what about the fall? So she was just really disturbed, that I could even say that I believe people were good. It's like you're missing the whole thing. I don't think I'm missing a whole thing. And I think I read somewhere in your documents about original sin. That whole thing drives me nuts. So for years now, I've said there's no original sin. I go back to Matthew Fox. He said original blessing, that's what you call it, because we were created good. And if we see ourselves as good, that changes how we interact with the world. Do you know what I'm talking about? Yeah, even I think you know that. Somebody thinks I'm good. If you think yourself is good, you have something to offer. You walk into a room, you greet people like you all did today, and it's like, oh, it's good being that. But if you think yourself as a sinner, you're always going to be, I don't know, can I walk up to that person, or I'm not sure. And we lose our spiritual authority, and that's where the second part of my book, Reclaiming Our Spiritual Authority. Can we come back around to the time again of believing that we are good? I don't know. I mean, some people say, well, I don't know. But it's possible. And so like in my first book, I showed ways that just in ordinary life we can notice other people and say, oh, what a good job you've been doing, or I love how you handle that, or it was so nice of you to come up and introduce yourself to me today, and those kind of things. And I'm much more willing to go out now that I have gotten over that feeling like I'm totally bad, and that I can reach out to others. And so to me, this is what our time is about. On the news and everything else, we've been being told that people are bad, the immigrants, everybody else, they're all bad, they need to be punished, they need to be kept in check or whatever. But if we could all figure out how to reclaim our spiritual authority and speak as Jesus or God or whoever you believe in would speak. Does that make sense? I hope I'm making, yeah. So basically, that's my basic tenet. Like I said, the book goes into all the horrible things that happened in the Middle Ages and then some of the horrible things that are happening now. But that there's always people that have resilience, always people that step forward and say, no, this is wrong, And I always quote some of the women mystics from the Middle Ages, and they would write things that they had God and themselves had talked about, so they knew it was coming from God, and so they'd write things, and the church was always putting them, wanting to excommunicate them or something. And I know one of them, I can't remember which, but said that, I'm not worried about it because God, is right there, has spoken this, so whatever they say, they're just not informed or whatever. So having a clear knowledge that you do have spiritual authority, we all have it. We've been sent as disciples out into the world to bring it to others. So I think that's it for now for me, and then I guess there's some comments or whatever.